Civ 7 is fresh out of the oven, and it's going to take some time for us to learn all of the mechanics that are involved with the new game. But one of the mechanics that's been underexplored has been espionage, at least by me. Someone on the Discord by the name of Rarock actually pointed this out to me and said, hey, you got to try rushing espionage. At first I thought he was joking, and then I realized just how serious he was. Have a look at this. Currently, we've got 20 culture. We're not having a particularly good game. We've just gone random civ, random leader, no mementos, and this means that we've got a long time to wait. Citizenship is 32 turns away. Public life is 18 turns away. But what if I told you we could just go ahead and just get that right now? Boom, there it is. And that is because we had a spy. We had a cheeky little spy in one of these empires, and another one of these civilizations had researched it, and within a single turn, we managed to go from 0 to hero. Today's video focuses on the power that is espionage. Let's get to it. Today's playthrough is with Frederick Baroque. We've gone for a random leader with a random civilization and no mementos. On top of that, we've got the deity difficulty on the standard speed, and we haven't gone for the long age length. We've just gone for the standard age length just because we just went click, 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 click. So let's get into it and talk about espionage. It's turn 49, and we're about to unlock our mastery for writing. This is going to give us access to steel technological advancement. When we use this, it's going to send a spy over towards one of our neighbors, and we're going to be able to retrieve some potential technology from them. The way that it works is quite complicated, so let's get into it and take a look. First and foremost, we want to find out who is going to be the best target for this, and I would suspect it's probably going to be Hamiko here with 44 science per turn. So she's going to be our #1 priority. When it comes to considerations here, we also want to make sure that in the event we get caught, there's the least ramifications possible. So perhaps spying someone who's further away than Hamiko, as she's spawned relatively close here on this very cramped continent, could be a smart idea. At the same time, I'd probably avoid spying on Xerxes because not only is he notorious for his warpath, but also he's quite close to us, and we want to be cautious about inflaming tensions. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to hit up Hamiko, we're going to scroll down, and we're going to steal technological advancement. Now, the way that this works is it's going to cost 80 influence for us to do this. However, you'll watch our influence count. We're currently sitting at 21 per turn. If we scroll down, that's now going to go down to 17 per turn. So it's going to be using up 4 influence every single turn that we are doing this this espionage act. Now, further to that, it's also random how long it will take. It's going to be at least 9 turns and could be up to 15 turns, which means you're having that deduction for the entire time. It's -4 every single turn. So the true cost here is unknown, but it is some cost between the 80 plus 9 times 4, so that would be another 36, versus 15 times 4, which would be up to 60. So it could be a very expensive advancement or technological advancement steal if we're going to do it. But what do we actually get from this theft? So it's turn 59. It's been 10 turns since we sent out that mission, and we haven't heard back yet. We're about to research sailing, and we're very hopeful that sailing isn't going to be retrieved. Instead, we'd prefer the wheel or bronze working. So with 1 turn to go on sailing, after we complete this technology, it means that it's not going to be potentially stolen because we already know it. So by doing this, it means that we're able to guarantee that when the technology does come back after Hanging Gardens, it's bronze working. That's 12 turns of science technology that we just received. Right there, 12 turns that we just got. Now, compare that, okay? If we were to say, okay, 12 turns, how much did that actually cost? Well, we can take a look at the wheel, which is 11 turns, and let's just assume it's the same number, okay? So that means that this is 290, so roughly around the 320 mark is the science cost for this, 320. Now, if we were to compare that to a science agreement, you're looking at 6 per turn, which technically is only 4 per turn because you can just get the 2 science for free. That's if it's incoming. If it's outgoing, obviously, there's no difference. But that's over a 15-turn period, which means, let's say it is 6 per turn, you're looking at 90 science that's going to be coming in. So in this example right here, we have just accumulated almost or more than triple the science that you would have got if you were to have done a collaboration with another leader versus if you steal off them. Now, that's not to say that you can't do both. You definitely can, but the biggest issue you're going to have is influence, because not only does that influence cost come up front, you've also got the influence that trails. Now, today's exercise has been, by the looks of it, a great success. And that's because we've got a migrant here, and indeed it has been a great success. We've been undiscovered, the spy remained hidden, and that means that now we don't face any negative ramifications because of our stealing. We don't face any consequences with regard to our relationship. We don't have any losses there. This has been a perfect exercise, and it means now that we've done that, let's go ahead, we can do it again. We'll start her up. So there's nothing to stop you from doing both of them at the same time, but influence is going to be the primary factor that's going to be limiting you. So if I was to give advice, I would say, look, it's probably a good idea you just want to be stealing all the time if you can only afford to steal. Just simply because you're looking at about a 3x difference, at least off that one right there. Now, keep in mind, there's varying levels of success. We haven't even considered the fact that there is a migrant here as well. But what this means is that pantheons like the city patron goddess, if we take a look down here, I think we've already picked up an altar. Let's have a look here. We've already got an altar here. Maybe over on this one. Yeah, we don't have an altar yet. But city patron goddess, the pantheon, is now all of a sudden, because of this discovery. So once again, shout out to the One More Turn Discord for picking this one up. So +3 influence on the altar now just becomes so much more powerful. And it means that most likely what we're going to start seeing a trend happen is people are going to be prioritizing getting to the wheel, just simply because it means that you're able to have more influence earlier. You're able to get that influence start trickling in. It means that the monument is now more powerful. So we've spoken about science. Let's speak about culture and what you can do with that. So we've come back in time to turn 54. Now, just keep in mind, I played this game earlier in today, and I'm only just now making content on this. I've saved a whole bunch of different turns depending on what's going to happen on the next turn. So when we click this turn button right here, that's going to carry us over into the next turn. We've unlocked the Code of Laws Mastery, and the Code of Laws Mastery is where you're going to be receiving that government secrets theft ability. And just similarly to the science side, we want to be looking towards the culture and have a look at the numbers. Which leader is pulling the best numbers here? And it looks like it's going to be Lafayette. So we'll go ahead to Lafayette, and we're going to steal government secrets. And once again, the consideration that we're making here is, well, we don't want to anger our neighbor that we've settled very close to. Lafayette's pretty far away down here, and he's leading on culture. It just makes sense for us to steal from him. And because of that, it means that we're going to have the highest chance to pull a technology that is going to give us big numbers. That means that citizenship is potentially available here, because the way that it does work is that it only takes from the technologies that they've actually researched. And another thing to note, and I've only just discovered this today, it won't ever steal a mastery. At least from my playthrough here, I'm almost 100% certain it will never steal a mastery for a technology or for a civic. And I'll explain more about that later on in the video, but that's the conclusion that I've got at this stage. Let's move on to the next turn and take a look at what we get with our first culture theft. Okay, so it's turn 66, and well, wouldn't you know it, next turn, it's going to be... Yep, you guessed it. We've just unlocked tactics. So if we take a look at how much culture that is equivalent to, right now, tactics is at the same level that public life is at, so that is 12 turns of culture. So just once again, if we were going to calculate that, we're at 31 culture per turn right now, so you're looking at about 360 culture, roughly in that area, 360, 370, somewhere in that region. And if we were to compare that to a cultural agreement, if we were to accept it, you'd be looking at about 90 culture. So it's quite a big difference. However, let's take a look at the espionage status update, and you'll see that our spy has been revealed. So the action did succeed. We were able to get the secret technology, which was indeed... does it even say here? Yeah, government... Oh, no, we stole... Oh, yeah, here, down here. Tactics civics. That's what we've stolen. So it says that we've suffered a -4 influence penalty for 10 turns. Now, initially when I read that, the first time it went through, I was like, okay, they're not talking about influence, they're talking about our relationship. That was just how my head passed that. Now, we do receive a -10 for revealing the espionage, but that's not what it's actually talking about. What's happening is it's siphoning off our influence over to Lafayette now, because he revealed the spy, which means we now get income from him, or rather he gets income from us of 4 influence per turn. which actually gives you a really good incentive, especially in multiplayer games. And shout out to Herson for pointing this out. He said it actually makes a lot of sense if you're the tech leader. You want to be the tech leader and you want to try and stay ahead in Civ 7. And this is quite different from Civ 6, primarily because it means people are going to be stealing from you. And if you catch them stealing, then you're going to be building influence, which then you can use in turn to steal from other people. So there's a whole there's a whole economy of stealing here. But I guess the real point here is that you do need to be cautious about potentially giving the leader a bigger lead. But at the end of the day, I don't really think it's a huge consideration. The most important thing is that you're going to be able to unlock full technologies versus actually only receiving a yield. And that's going to be a key difference between what happens is when you overtake somebody. So let's move on now to the next theft or the next point that we'll be talking about. Okay, it's turn 70 and we are about to complete the wheel. With the completion of the wheel is a new espionage technique or operation that we can do, which is where we go and head over towards, let's target Himiko here, and it's the military infiltration. Now, it works the same way in the sense that it takes between 9 and 15 turns. However, there's no bonus that you're getting here, no bonus yields that you're going to be able to pull. All it's going to do is just reveal where their commanders are. Now, there's also a component of great success here, where if it is successful, great successfully, or successfully great, you will also receive a migrant at the cap for doing this. Now, one thing to note with this is that with this discovery, with this revelation, it significantly increases the power of Harriet Tubman. Harriet Tubman has, in my eyes, now gone to potentially the strongest leader in the game, which is kind of crazy because just, you know, obviously Isabella was the front runner, and then Catherine came along with her silly memento, and now all of a sudden Tubman has just rocketed past them, and that's because of the bonus that she gets to espionage actions, and the fact that you'll probably look to synergize her espionage actions with her special memento, the Lantern. I can't remember the exact name of it, but it basically gives you a second migrant. And migrants are incredibly powerful if you know how to manipulate the terrain around your environment to get them to work as specialists. They can be incredibly strong. So I would say typically you would want to avoid this unless you've got the influence to do it. At the moment, you can see we're only sitting at plus 13. There's also the risk that if it gets found out that we're going to be siphoning off -4 to her for those subsequent turns. So we do need to be cautious about it. But I would say pretty much every leader except for Tubman should avoid doing that. And I think that's partially what gives Tubman that advantage as well. So let's move on to our next point. It's turn 73 and it's time for us to roll over the turn and get our reward. Now we're currently researching currency, which is at 8 turns, and we've also got military training, which is at 17 turns. So we'll go ahead and we'll roll over. And what have we got? Let's have a look at our espionage status update. You'll see that we've stolen off Himiko, but we've only been given 180 science. Now, I'm not 100% sure if this is in relation to the fact that this was not a great success, and then there's just a chance that it gives you a tech or it gives you a yield, or whether we've actually caught up to Himiko. Because I'll spoil it now for you. We do eventually catch her 100% because we're having great successes and we're only getting the yields from it. So there may be a component where you can still get caught and still have a great success. We did see that earlier, but there may also be a roll that is done on whether or not you have a yield that you're receiving versus whether you get an entire technology. Now, of course, the reality could be that she just has none of these techs up here, though I do suspect that's quite unlikely because she is quite far ahead when it comes to her science. So at this point, you've got an option. You could continue spying on Himiko, or you could say, well, hold on a minute, Xerxes is pretty far ahead on science as well. Maybe there's a tech, like maybe as an example, Himiko hasn't researched the military training tech, but Xerxes is a bit more military focused. Maybe he has, so maybe we can go and send out a spy to Xerxes. Now, I'll tell you right now, in this playthrough, we don't actually do that because we don't want to inflame him anymore because he's quite mad at us, and we don't go to war, but yeah. Anyway, so that's essentially the thinking. Let's move on over to our next theft. It's turn 82, and all we're doing right now is we're just working up our own Roman civics because the reality is, unless you're playing as a civilization that somebody else is going to be picking, they're probably not going to be stealing the unique civics. Now, I haven't confirmed whether or not you can actually can steal the unique civics, so we'll probably have to work that one out in a separate video, but I figured it probably wasn't that relevant anyway. It was more of just a minor thing. So we haven't progressed at all through this tech tree. Now, one of the other things to note is this is the only mastery we are going to be getting this game. We're going to be leaving these ones intentionally, just because we want to make sure that we don't actually steal them. And of course, I've already spoiled the result for you. They do not get stolen throughout the course of this game. And I know as a matter of fact that the AI has them, because Lafayette builds the Gate of All Nations, and we steal from him, and we still only get the yield. We don't, and it's a great success. We only get the yield. We don't get the technology. So that, in my mind, says 100% you cannot steal the masteries of the technologies. But let's roll it over. Let's see what we've gotten. Looks like a great success, ladies and gentlemen. It is citizenship that we've secured, and this is just, you know, the culture is just rolling in at this point. You got 21 turns, so that was a 16-turn equivalent on the culture. We're at 40 culture per turn right now. If this isn't evidence enough as to why you should stop accepting those trade agreements and start doing espionage, I don't know what is, because as I said, this is bare bones that we've got here. We random our leader, we got Frederick, we random our civ, we got Rome. We've got absolutely no bonuses towards it, and we're just kind of playing a standard game, and yet still we're doing incredibly well, at least from my tempo, rough estimates on tempo. It seems pretty damn good. So this has been a great success. We can already tell by the migrant. We'll go ahead and click, and we'll see that we've stolen citizenship. We remain undetected, and of course we're going to straight away go again, and we will send out our spy once again, because we want to continue those operations going on. I tell you what, I wouldn't be surprised if this gets nerfed. It feels very strong, and it feels like if you're not doing it, it's like there doesn't seem to be any clear downside. Now, I will also provide this caveat. It's a little bit far in the video for it, but I will say this. In the early game, if you meet Catherine and she offers you a culture agreement at turn 11, it's a good idea to take it. And the reason why is quite simple. You don't unlock your ability to steal culture until this point. So I think what's most likely going to become the meta is that people will go mysticism, into discipline, into code of laws, and then into this mastery. And then from there, that's when you can start looking to flex. That's when you can go, okay, I'm going to go to organized military. That's when you can say, I'm going to do my own unique civics. Because the moment you unlock this is when your acceleration significantly starts boosting. It's turn 86, and it's time for us to steal some science. If we take a look in the tech tree at the moment, we've got 3 16-turn options as well as the masteries that we're researching. We're spending all of our science on the masteries, and then just spending all of our unlocks, or all of our stealing on the actual technology. So let's go ahead and roll it over and see what we get. And it is going to be engineering. So that's 16 turns of science that's coming through right now. That is more than 600 science that we've just received. We also get the migrant on top of it. Now, I will also just say that migrants can be a little bit of, well, you've got to be careful with them, okay? So as an example, at this point right now, if we were to put down a migrant, what we could do is we could put a world wonder on top of it. So we could take this migrant, we could put it down right here, and we could go, okay, I'm going to put the Great Stele right here, and then I'm going to bring the Great Stele up, and what that's going to do is it's going to kick that migrant out. We can cancel the Great Stele, and now we can actually allocate that migrant as a specialist. But there becomes a point in the game where you've got migrants and you can't make any world wonders, where you've got migrants and you don't have any buildings, and they can become actually a negative thing, because if you're putting migrants down on a 4 food tile, and that could have been a specialist, you're actually losing out on that. Until you can actually remove that migrant from that food tile, it becomes a problem. So there's definitely going to become an element of skill about choosing where you put these migrants down, especially with characters or leaders like Tubman who get more migrants than others. Then I would be suspecting that that's probably going to be a very important skill as we move forward into the game. So as an example, you wouldn't put a migrant out here because it's a brand new town, but this city right here could be a good candidate for a migrant. Perhaps there's a different world wonder that could be built over here that you couldn't build in this city. So these are further considerations that will require more depth to deal with. It's turn 97, and it's time to talk about the finer details of this. For all you guys that are actually sticking around and watching the good parts, let's get into the details with this, because it's quite interesting how it unfolds. At the moment, we're at 13 out of 15 with Lafayette's Steal Government Secrets. This means that guaranteed next turn or the turn after, it is going to be 100% a tech steal or a yield that we will get. So what we can actually do, and look, I already know what technology it's going to be. I know that it's going to be literacy. However, check this out. I'm going to go click literacy. I'm going to start researching it, even though I've got organized military here. So in a normal game, I wouldn't do this. I would always be researching organized military here, but let me just explain why. So now what we've done is we've started researching this tech, and we've got skilled trade instead. So we've chosen, essentially, we've been able to choose which technology we want to roll into. let me show you what happens when we don't actually move it onto literacy. Okay, so now we're back on turn 97, and we're just going to leave our focus on organized military here, and instead, what's going to happen is that literacy is going to be researched for us when we roll over the turn. There it is. And this tells us right now that if you're researching a technology, that it will not give you that tech. And the reason why I know is because I've rolled this over 10 different times to test it, and every single time it gave me literacy. It never gave me anything different. Yet the moment that I start researching literacy, it says, oh no, actually, we'll give them something different. We'll give them something that they're not researching. And this allows us to now manipulate this. This means that we can say, okay, if I don't want to get something, perhaps I'm working towards skilled trades, and there's a chance that public life might be uncovered, we can go back and double back for public life. Now, of course, this is only dependent on if you're closer to the end cycle of your spying, because with a 9 to 15 variable, there's 6 turns where you're going to be researching that might just go into nothing. But it does mean if you were to look at the tech tree right now, we're researching mathematics. And what that means is that if a science breakthrough was meant to come through, so if we take a look right now, it could come through at any single point, that it would 100% be excluded from the breakthrough. We would get either military training or navigation. But we can exploit that. What we can then do is say, okay, we're going to start researching navigation now instead of researching mathematics. And that means that if we take a look here, you can see that we did in fact have a great success in the sense that we stole the literacy civic, but we were discovered. So despite us receiving the technology, we still do have to pay that influence. Our spy was revealed, and we do not receive the migrant. But let's roll these turns over just a couple more times. I'm just going to force end the turn, and we should now see, oh gosh, that flood is loud, apologies, and we've got an espionage status update. What did we get? We got yield, and that is my suspicion is because we're actually ahead of Hamiko right now. So we can't say conclusively that at this stage that's how it happens, but that's my suspicion, is that once you're ahead of them, you can't actually unlock techs. You can only steal the techs that they've actually researched, which obviously makes sense, right? It's not groundbreaking stuff, but it's important that we have actual data that supports this, and that's what this is consistently showing. You can't steal techs from someone that you're ahead of, or, you know, you can't steal text from somebody that doesn't have any text that you can steal, because you know everything. So let's move on now to our next point, because, well, we've clearly shown that in this situation here, it doesn't really matter that we switched it from navigation over to mathematics. In fact, it hurt us. However, there's always a chance that mathematics could have come through in another turn or in a second turn, and maybe that was the difference between it. So I think there's definitely a world. You're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't, because if the tech is unlocked and you hit the great success, then you can get mathematics. But at the same time, if you change over to navigation and she hasn't unlocked the tech yet, then all of that extra yield that you get is now going into navigation. So you've just kind of wasted it. So it's a very... They've done a good job with this mechanic. I don't know who worked on this mechanic, but whoever did, they've done a good job, because it's fun trying to work out how to exploit this. Okay, so we're getting to the pointy end of the stick here. It's turn 108. We'll roll over once again, and we've got a science theft that's come through. You'll notice that it has been a great success because there's a migrant in the capital. However, we've once again only received a science yield, which 100% verifies to me that we are by far ahead in science now. Despite our yields not being greater than Hamiko, she's got double our yields, yet we're still ahead in science, or at least, at the very least, even, but more than likely ahead at this point. We are coming online. You can see that we've got our academies that are being produced in our cities at the moment, but we're working towards our science. She's a little bit ahead of us. Here's another interesting piece of data. So we're now researching... Oh, wrong button. We're now researching public life. We've researched philosophy to one turn, and we're about next turn to receive our civic. So what happens if we click on skilled trade and we start researching it? Now, I know as a matter of fact, if I was to just research philosophy and then go into skilled trades afterwards, it will give me public life. And I know as a matter of fact, if I go into philosophy and then go into public life afterwards, it will give me skilled trade. So what happens when it goes philosophy, public life, and then skilled trade? Is it going to give us a yield, or is it going to give us a technology? Let's find out, because I'm doing this for the first time right now with you guys. and it looks like it's going to be a yield. So what does that mean? That means that we want to avoid partially researching technologies. And what it also means is that we want to complete technologies in full that are lower. Though technically, I think you could probably get away with just putting a little bit into it as long as you leave the ones at the top open. However, what this does is I think there might be a potential route where this could be exploited. I don't want to use the word exploit, but rather you could game the system in that if you had both philosophy and commerce that were open, and you had public life that was open, and also tactics, what you could do is put one turn into public life, one turn into tactics, and I don't believe it would give you either of those. Instead, I believe it would prioritize giving you the full tech, which would be one of these two. And you could reserve the influence that you're spending, you could be spending it here, and as long as you've just put one turn into public life and one turn into tactics, or if you just want to research them for organized military or entertainment, go for it. But that's my understanding of how this currently works. You can... This is pretty good data that we're getting right now. Okay, it's turn 121, and we're working towards more sciencey things. We're going for iron working at the moment, and Hamiko is about to will give us some good stuff. There it is. It looks like it's going to be a yield that she's given us because, as we well and truly have established at this point, we're ahead. So let's roll over a couple more turns here, and very, very shortly we should be getting a cultural update. Now, of course, we're researching commerce at the moment, and we'd love to have commerce, but at the same time, we've got entertainment that's down here. So at the moment, the way we can predict what's going to happen, because if we look at Lafayette, we can see that we're 11 out of 15 here. It's going to be coming through. We know that we're probably going to be getting entertainment here because we're actively researching commerce, so it's going to lock that out, and it's going to mean that entertainment is here. Even though we've got these 3 masteries, it's never going to give them to us. So let's go ahead. We'll roll over this turn, and it should... now, either this turn or the next turn. No, it's going to be the next turn. It should now give us entertainment. Let's have a look and see. What do we get? It's entertainment. There you go. So you're able to predict exactly what tech or what civic it's going to give you, and you can specifically manipulate it so that it gives you the one that you want. You can, in this circumstance, a way that you could have flipped it is you could have been spending your you could have been spending your culture on entertainment, and then that guarantees that you're getting commerce instead. Further to that, you want to be prioritizing getting the civics if you actually are going to be using them, because you're not going to be getting them any other way. You're not going to be able to steal the civics in here. And as I've said, this has been 100% evidenced. I don't know whether he's built it just yet, but the Gate of All Nations is somewhere in this empire, and we are stealing off him the entire game. I'll take you through to that right now. Let's have a look. I'll show you the final culture steal. Okay, so it's turn 134. We've made it all the way to the end of the game. We are currently researching future civic. You'll see that we've got all of our masteries that are still available for us to be stolen. Now, we know right here that the person that we're spying on, Lafayette, you can see right here, we know that he has got the mastery technology. Actually, hold on. Do we know that? Is there a way that he can access Gate of All Nations? No, we know that he can't, because Persia is the one that has Gate of All Nations through their tree. So he's playing as, I want to say Greece. So he's playing as Greece, so he would have access to the Oracle instead, which we can see over here. So here he's got Gate of All Nations, which means he has had to have researched Discipline 2. And what's going to happen here is we're not going to be getting Discipline 2, we're going to be getting a yield, which is going to complete our future civic. And because of that, we can determine that you will never get the civics. Or rather, you will never get the masteries for the civics. I do not know if it works the exact same way with science. My suspicion is that it probably would. As I said, for the purpose of this game, and I think this game took me like an hour and a half, 2 hours, so I'm not going to do it a second time just to verify. I'm just going to make that assumption right now, so just keep that in mind that that's an assumption, and that it may actually be different, but my assumption is that masteries will not be considered technologies for the purpose of theft. And I guess I can understand why they've done that, right? Like, they are typically cheaper. This one's 5 turns, only 5 turns here, whereas the technology itself would be like 8 to 9 turns, maybe even 10 turns. So I can understand why they've done that. So going over this and what we've learned in today's video, just to recap. Number one, you want to be still taking agreements early. I would prioritize science and culture early, until you can actually unlock them. I think that you should still take those agreements as well if you can move into a high level of influence early. Now, that's going to be done through going into an altar and being able to get the city patron goddess pantheon. If you're able to get that and you're able to support stealing 100%, and then at the same time you've still got left over to send out agreements or receive agreements, then absolutely go for it. But I think it's probably going to be best to keep that in reserve and just make sure that you're always able to do espionage. There's always the risk that you don't have a great success and that you have to fork out that influence per turn. So that's another consideration. But obviously influence is a powerful resource. We knew that already, but this means that things like the monument, this means that the villa, as an example, are going to be really important because these are guaranteed ways that you can get influence across your cities and push up that influence count even further. On top of that, influence is a really important resource just to have in the back pocket. As an example, if we go to war here with Xerxes, what we can do, you can see that it will be a 1 for us, so we've got an advantage, but we can take that advantage and we can push it even further with war support. We've got 882 stocked up right now, and we can take that 1 and turn it into a +7. That means that when we're fighting, that our units are going to do more damage to his. That means that his cities are going to be really unhappy, and that's the power of influence. So I genuinely think this might be the best resource in the game. It's not a direct yield that's going to see your tech improve, but that is unless you're able to convert that into an actual tangible advantage, which is like stealing the technologies. So overall, I think that you want to be doing these 100% of the time. You want to do your best to focus on the leaders that have got the highest yields, because typically they're going to have the highest technology. You want to be sending them out 24/7. Avoid doing it to leaders that are very close to you, that you want to avoid wars with. And I think that's pretty much it. If you've enjoyed this video, feel free to leave a like. If you want to talk about this video or play the seed that has that we've been on today, then make sure you check out the Discord where we've got it linked. It's a very cramped seed. Just take a look at how, by the way, he was forward settling everybody. He's a madman, I tell you what. Look at this. Look at this settle down. Oh no, that's not even a steal. That's not even a settle. That's a steal. He's stolen that one. Yeah, it was a good fun seed to play on. Nice neutral start. Wasn't too crazy, but just keep in mind that with this save, we don't actually have any mementos to play through. But it was good fun. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and of course, make sure you hit that subscribe button because there is always time for one more turn.